information is, you write, a unique commodity. In what way is information a unique commodity?
So information is a commodity, right? Like if you Google data is and you put that in a Google search, you'll see like data is the new oil, data is the new gold. People, data in the internet world, data is really valuable. In our personal data, we're seeing how valuable it is to advertisers and to law enforcement. But the interesting thing about information is it's not fungible. So like oil is fungible. If you can get oil from this barrel or from that barrel, and oil is oil is oil, or water, right? If I spill this bucket of water, I can just fill it with more water, and here's some water. Information is unique, right? If you say, hey, I want to learn more about malaria, and I say, oh, well, okay, here's a report, and I hand you a report about like influenza or the properties of iron, that is not going to be useful for you, right? If you want my information and I hand you somebody else's information, that's not useful. Every piece of information is unique. So whoever owns the most information rules the market, because whichever academic company owns the most academic material or scholarly material, that's the company everyone's going to use because they have the most of this unique type of information. It's really hard for startup legal information companies to compete against Westlaw and Lexis because they don't have as much unique
Right.
legal information as these companies have. So
And these companies have exclusivity on this
exactly.
information. It's as if like, you're not going to watch a streaming service that doesn't have, the majority of the programs you want to watch. And unlike streaming services where this stuff gets relicensed, there is a bargaining power associated with the people producing the content for a streaming service that allows them to say, like, you're not going to get an exclusive streaming, or it's going to be exclusive only for a period of time. If I've written a thesis for, my doctoral thesis, I don't have the bargaining power to say it's only going to be available. I'm going to license it around these different places. It's my college is doing it, or my university. And the same thing with the law. I mean, there's no regulations around any of this.
No. Yeah. And I mean, you see like with Facebook and with Twitter, I don't think most of us love or feel proud of the fact that we use these services, but they give us information that we can't get anywhere else. So we all stay on, right? Information is just a unique type of power, and it's a uniquely valuable type of commodity. And once you have control over it, you really can't control a lot of people because lawyers were really pissed off when they read my work. There's not a single lawyer, I don't think, who dropped either Westlaw or Lexis because they need it.
Right. They weren't mad at your work. They were mad about the situation they were locked into.
Yep.
So, okay, with that said, let's talk about the recommendations that you have as to how to address this, because this is like the Wild West in terms of any type of regulation. And you're right that this is like typical for new type of information services, that there's always something that is like sacrosanct. But we hear this from anybody who seems to be making money in anything at any time. It feels like the government just doesn't understand my business, and if they regulate it, they're going to break things, and people are going to be mad.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's this law professor who named Megletta Jones, who wrote a piece about technological exceptionalism. And I think that really sums it up. This idea of like, what we're doing is so complicated, you couldn't possibly start to regulate it. I know that, like Facebook for a really long time kind of got away with that. And Microsoft, like, oh, you guys, we're going to save the world. Don't worry. You just sit back. We're doing everything the right way. And I think the median age of Congress, it might be younger now that we have a new Congress, but historically it's been around, 60 years old. And so a lot of people that make legislation actually aren't as familiar with tech stuff as they should be. But that kind of tech exceptionalism ignores the fact that, like, in the past, we've been able to regulate cars. We were able to regulate, printing presses. Like, this isn't the first time new technology has happened. And it is ridiculous to think that we can't or shouldn't intervene. And I think what we've been seeing a lot is just lack of intervention. And so I think the solution is a kind of an array of interventions, of legal interventions that just haven't been taken yet.
And are those, I mean, because I would imagine from a legislative standpoint, it's going to be difficult because national security entities are going to come in and police departments are going to come in and go like, we need this to keep the country safe type of thing. And it's going to take, as much as the Republicans, if they ever get a Speaker of the House, are talking about having a revived church commission, it's not going to be to protect citizens from undue spying, essentially, because this is what spying is. I mean, this is the spying, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's just that the police departments and the national security apparatus, they're just buying the stuff that they would otherwise earn themselves by spying. They're just buying the spy. They're just hiring another spy, essentially, to spy on us. But a lot of this could be done on some level via antitrust, right? Like how would you go about doing it in the context of antitrust?
Right. Yeah. So I totally, there are like, this is a multifaceted problem. So there are different angles. So I think antitrust is one of the big ones that I focus on. And then also kind of Fourth Amendment constitutional laws that make these non-state actor companies subject to like warrant requirements and other transparency requirements. But as far as antitrust goes, one of the things I tried to illustrate, in my research anyway, is one of the big problems with these companies is we've allowed them to get huge, take over multiple information sectors and just kind of run with it. Like, do whatever you want, like it's super cool that you own all of US law, and then you also own like the biggest policing, data policing system in the world. We're comfortable with that. And I think that we need to really seriously consider the types of business that major data brokers, like when I say data broker, I mean companies that deal in our personal data. Maybe it's not a great idea to also have them be a duopoly for our legal information access, and also, be one of the main sources for academic information. So I think kind of starting to, obviously prevent monopolies like these, and make sure that there aren't just two companies that own all of the world's information would be great. But also putting a wedge or some sort of protective wall in between companies that do, like you said, kind of spy work or personal data work, which we all feel innately is creepy, whether it's unregulated or not. So separate that from other business types, so that we don't have to participate, and we don't have to. It kind of forces us to like opt in to these systems if we have to be customers because we need legal information or because we work at a university or whatever. So really the only way we can get an opt out is if you put special limitations on data brokers, what kind of business they can do, and make sure that we don't get these data monopolies in the way they exist today. So that's kind of an antitrust solution, which I don't think that that's a successful solution without also thinking about data privacy and warrant requirements and other types of legislation.
Right. There's going to have to be interventions that come from different sectors, essentially.